Good evening and welcome to episode 162 of the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Howard Kravitz. We've got a fantastic show tonight covering the late pick 5 on Saturday at Saratoga like a glove with the Vanderbilt Stakes and Jackie's Warrior, and then the Jim Dandy Stakes with Epicenter, early voting, and Zandon. What an unbelievable day of racing we're going to have this Saturday. Please make sure you subscribe right there on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. Also hit that notification bell so that you know new content and new shows will arise. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter there on the bottom of the screen at @HKravitz. Also, smash that thumbs up button at the bottom of the screen. We'd really appreciate that. And also on the scroll on the bottom, you can see my email. Just past there, it'll show up again. If you want to contact me, any questions about the show, comments, whatever you have, hkravitzhorse@gmail.com. A few quick items here. You can follow us, of course, on audio on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Anchor. If you cannot catch the live show on video or you just want to listen to it, you can, of course, listen to it on those platforms. Also, the podcast pool is back this August. If you have no idea what the podcast pool is, we basically bring our money together. We create a syndicate and we bet horizontal and vertical bets. If you're interested at all in the podcast pool for the HHH Racing Podcast starting again in August, please send me an email, hkravitzhorse@gmail.com. If you're already on my email list, I'll be sending out information about the podcast pool for August. You will automatically get it if you are on our email list. Highly recommend you check that out. We have a lot of fun. We've had some nice scores before. Hopefully we're going to be doing it again. I think that takes care of all the administrative items. I want to get right to our co-hosts and our wonderful guests that we have tonight. So let's first bring in our co-hosts from Maryland. We've got Pete Visco, and of course from the Saratoga Special, Paul Halloran. Guys, got a little rain in Saratoga today.
Oh, what it looked like a typically crazy Saratoga weather day. Sun, little rain, back to sun, a lot of rain, back to sun.
Absolutely. It was the first day where they really got some real heavy rain. I saw the forecast, and Paul, I'm sure you're going to be excited. Hopefully we'll repeat this next week, because for those of you who don't know, Paul will be in Saratoga Springs next week covering many things, including, of course, the fantastic Whitney Stakes with Life is Good and Olympiad and what American Revolution, Hot Rod Charlie. Holy cow, is that going to be a race? Pete, I don't know, did you check out Saratoga today at all?
No, I didn't get a chance today. My day job got in the way, unfortunately, today. But
those damn day jobs.
Yeah, I know. Every once in a while, they interrupt the real good stuff.
Absolutely. I got the Saratoga Springs hat going with the quarter pole and the horse there. So I got a bunch of. I overspent Paul, of course, in Saratoga Springs. No surprise for a first timer. But anyway, guys, we could chat for a long time, but I want to bring in our special guest. I'm really excited to have him on the show tonight. So let me introduce our special guest. First, we're going to be bringing in Seth Merrow. Seth is the founder and publisher of the popular horse racing news website, equidaily.com. Additionally, Seth is a longtime host and handicapper on Capital OTB with the Racing Across America show, which yours truly was invited to be on and had a great time. He's also a regular guest on Sirius XM's At the Races with Steve Bick. He has participated in Triple Crown and Breeders' Cup handicapping seminars for Capital OTB and the National Museum of Racing. And finally, he is or was a contributor to ESPN.com's Kentucky Derby Top 10 poll. He is my new friend. I had the honor to be on his show, and now he's to be on our show from, I'm assuming, Saratoga Springs. Seth Merrow. Seth, how you doing tonight?
Fairly close. I'm actually in Ballston Spa, but close enough. I was in Saratoga 45 minutes ago, and yes, it was a wacky weather day here in Saratoga, but not unusual. And Howard, I will ask you, is this your first time back on the podcast since you've returned home?
No, actually, we had a podcast last night covering Del Mar Saturday, which is a
great
day.
I missed that. Then maybe you filled in, but I was going to put on my interviewer's hat and have you talk about the Migliore backstretch tour because Kim Weir and Richard Migliore zip the cart by our TV set usually. And if we're standing outside, sometimes we'll stop by. I know everybody has a great time, and I know you took the tour the other day.
Oh, it was amazing. I actually talked about it last night, Seth. It was just the whole set. I talked about the Saratoga trip in general, including my appearance with you. And by the way, I just publicly once again want to thank you for inviting me on your show. We had a great time, about 20 minutes. We chopped up the late pick 4. A few opinions not great, but did have Fancy Feline. If you recall, I talked about that horse at 11-1 in the last race to key underneath.
You said plug it in underneath.
She finished third, and let her inspire you. The big favorite won on top, but there was a bomb in second, and the dollar try, I think Seth paid $5.40. So hopefully some reviewers maybe catch with Fancy Feline underneath. It's not always who you have on top. You got to fill out those other spots as well, right, Seth?
Absolutely. And I'll say hi to Pete and Paul as well. And Pete, I was driving home today, and I was thinking, man, it was hot. It's been hot all week. And as I'm driving home, I'm thinking, boo-hoo, I'm at the track all day, and it was hot. And I was thinking of people like Pete who maybe are at their regular job all day long. I'm at the track, and I'm complaining about the heat because it has been a little steamy over the past few days, but nothing like being at the track regardless of the weather. So for the folks who are watching this afternoon that had to be in an insurance office all day or a dental hygienist, I can't complain too much about being at Saratoga, regardless of the heat and humidity.
Hey, at least I was in my basement, so I could work from home. So I was in my basement with the AC on because the heat down here is unbelievable as well today. It was like it was walking out into a fog of heat. So yeah, so I'm not going to cry too much, but it does get in the way of racing every once in a while.
Yeah, I hear you.
Guys, real quick, Seth, I know you got that booming broadcaster voice. A few people said your voice is a little bit loud. I don't know if you have the ability to turn your sound down a little bit, or we can, or people can just deal with it. That's fine.
I don't know if I do, but I'll bring it down a notch.
I think you're fine, but a few people just comment in the chat. By the way, Seth, you know how the show runs a little bit because you've watched it. There will be comments at the bottom and questions, so make sure you look at the bottom of the screen once in a while. Seth, before we get started into our 10 minutes of post segment, and then we're going to handicap, tell everyone how you found about this show, because it made me so proud to know someone of your stature who's in the broadcasting business for a long time, very well known, just happened to stumble upon this little HHH racing podcast we have here.
Outside Saratoga, my game plan with Capital OTB TV, we do the morning show that you were on. We do a morning handicapping show. And that's every racing day, Wednesday through Sunday. Sunday, I co-host with Steve Bick from Sirius and XM's At the Races. Other days, I'm solo. The rest of the year, we're in a little studio down in Albany, and I handicap during the afternoon. And we'll put on whatever the 3 major tracks are that day. We'll have New York, Churchill, Gulfstream, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll kind of plug in during the afternoon to say, hey, in this next race at Churchill, I like this and this and this. Take a look at the odds here. Pick 4 coming up at Belmont, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm handicapping 3 tracks during the afternoon show. I typically sit down and do the handicapping the night before, and I sit right here at my desk with the computer open, and a lot of nights I have something on YouTube floating around in the background. Some nights I'm watching the match game with Gene Rayburn from 30 years ago. But one night the front page came up and there was a live stream of the HHH Racing podcast. I clicked on it, and I think it was the show you had Billy Koch on, which was really a lot of fun. And I thought, hey, this is a pretty good show. And subsequently on other nights, yours would pop up when I pulled up the front page, and I'd watch. And I don't know, it was the 3rd or 4th time I watched. I sent you an email and said, hey, great job. It was very entertaining and kept me entertained and informed. So I just gave you a thumbs up, and I've been watching ever since.
Well, Seth, we greatly appreciate it. And for those people, before we get into other questions, for those people that are not too familiar with you, Seth, and don't live in the New York area, how can they check out Racing Across America and your show?
In our area, it's on the Spectrum Cable Channel 1250. We're also on Roku, have been on Roku since the beginning of last year. We're on one of the Roberts channels, Roberts Communication, RTN. Capital OTV is a sub-channel there. The morning shows you can pick up via YouTube. There's or our Capital OTV Facebook channel. Typically, they're also streamed on the Capital OTV Twitter channel. But if you go to YouTube and pick up the Capital O TV channel on YouTube. We stream the morning shows. And again, we're live from Saratoga every racing morning. We have that set on the backstretch. I always say the biggest names in horse racing are a golf cart ride away. And over the 40 days of the meet, we have plugged in many of them, and we'll continue to the days ahead. But over the past few years, you know, guys like Jonathan Shepard and Alan Jerkins, Todd Pletcher, Chad Brown, Johnny Velasquez, all the biggest names come over at some point, sit in with us. And then we also spread the news a little bit and introduce people to maybe some of the smaller outfits and kind of, you know, the up close and personal from the old ABC Olympic days, just kind of introduce people to some of the other people in the game and some of the organizations and charities and whatnot. So the 2 hours every morning, again, that's probably the way to see it. If you're here locally, Spectrum 1250, or around the country, the Roku Roberts channel, or catch us on YouTube.
Yeah, well, you guys do a great show. The biggest names in horse racing, and then schmucks like me will come on the show. And,
Well, he said that. He said the smaller outfits.
But
That's
Paul, I said it for you because I knew Paul was thinking about it. But hey, Seth, we're climbing up the ladder. We're getting there. We've had a lot of really famous people on the show, and I'm really proud of what we've done. And we're definitely putting our name out there within the horse racing world. Seth, we have a very famous segment that our guests very much like that we're going to do for you. It is called 10 Minutes to Post. 10 minutes to post. Seth, these are going to be 10 rapid. Now it's copyrighted, Seth. Don't steal that on your show now. I'm just kidding.
Can I have 9 minutes to post?
Yeah, sure, why not? 10 rapid fire questions. So we want you to answer these basically like 30 seconds or less. And then we'll get into the handicapping the pick 5 at Saratoga. Are you ready? All right, here we go.
We'll see, but I feel ready.
All right, you'll see questions on the bottom of the screen. Pete and Paul will alternate as we usually do. I have the first question. What was the first moment you fell in love with horses or horse racing, Seth?
The first moment, that would be tough. I mean, I kind of got into the game because of Saratoga harness. I used to enjoy the harness races, and going back to when I first started going there in the summertime, there would be 6,000 or 8,000 people there, and they had a big set of bleachers at the end, and that was always full. And so I kind of fell in love via Saratoga harness on summer nights when I was a kid. And then I kind of transitioned over, and my early days, Forgo was one of my favorite horses, certainly. And then loved following his career. And so I don't know if I have a moment, but those are the kind of things that drew me into the game.
Well, last weekend, the Garrity Stakes was run. They had a huge stakes day at Saratoga. We checked it out Saturday night. I think Jingra, T-Trek, it was their biggest night of the year. Just happened to be when I was there. So I checked out Saratoga harness as well. Pete, you got the next question.
All right. Best, most memorable horse racing event ever attended?
That's a good question because a good question because I've never been to the Breeders' Cup. I've never been to the Kentucky Derby, but I've been to
after no Breeders' Cup or Kentucky Derby.
I've been to plenty of big events at Saratoga, and the biggest one was probably General Assembly's Travers, where he set a track record that stood for quite a while. And I had the Woody Stevens horse, and I'm forgetting his name right now, but he was a horse that bounced around to kind of those second level derbies. You know, he ran well in the Ohio Derby and the Indiana Derby or whatever, and then came up to Saratoga and ran a great race. It just wasn't as good as General Assembly that day. So that for me is probably the most memorable one.
Wow. All right. Paul, you got the next question at the bottom of the screen, Paul.
Seth, if you could go back in time and see one race in person that you weren't able to view, which would it be?
Well, in person, probably Secretariat's Belmont, right? Go see the Triple Crown and the fabulous, the margin of victory and whatnot. I was there a few years ago. We were actually there for Capital OTB to watch American Pharoah. And I'm sure the Secretariat days were not that, it didn't play out that way because most people in the crowd were holding up their phone to get a picture. And I think somebody had kind of maybe it was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, kind of the iconic picture of folks holding up their phone and getting their memory that way. And as I say, it's probably a little bit different in Secretariat's era, but yeah, I'd like to have seen that in person.
Seth, your favorite track to visit outside of the NYRA circuit?
Another good question. I really like Tampa. my father, before he passed away, when he was retired, he was down in Bradenton, a little below Tampa. I would go down and visit him and make some stops up at Tampa. Used to love the Sarasota Kennel Club as well, Derby Lane on the Greyhound side. But Tampa Bay, I think it's a nice little track. I think the racing has got very good. The turf is very good. Oaklawn, I'll toss in Oaklawn. Oaklawn has a very, just the town in general too, has a kind of a Saratoga feel. I like fairgrounds. But Tampa, I like Tampa. And you're in Florida in the wintertime. What's wrong with that?
I'm sure you've been to Siesta Key then. That's just a beautiful area. I was in that area for the first time last winter break. It was fantastic. Pete.
Biggest mistake the average handicapper consistently makes.
Biggest mistake the average handicapper. One thing that some public handicappers toss out that I don't necessarily agree with is a first-time starter with odds that are 6 or 8 to 1 or whatever, and they kind of feel like, well, that's cold on the board, so I'm not going to go there. If all the information I like on the first-time starter is there, the connections, the breeding, and an auction price, an auction workout, maybe I jump in and I want some odds. So I'm not necessarily, I'm shy away if the odds are floating up a little bit, particularly in Saratoga, where another horse can have a little bit of buzz and attract the action. I will say the opposite side of that, though, I do think you have to pay attention to. If a horse is 8 to 1 on the morning line and you look up at the board and all of a sudden you see 4 to 5, then I think you do have to jump on board. But the horses that kind of float up, I'm not necessarily buying into them being cold.
Well, something happened last week. I don't know if it was Thursday. I don't know if it was Friday or Saturday, but I don't think we'll ever see this again. Longest shot on the board, Chad Brown wins the first race. Longest shot on the board, Todd Pletcher won the second race. I mean, needless to say, I was out of the pick 5 at that point, but I don't know if we'll ever see that again. That was crazy when that happened. I was able to see it in person, so I know it happened for sure. Paul, what you got here? Next question.
Yeah, actually, Seth, that happened today with the Al Stahl horse. That one horse was 8 to 1 morning line, and they bet him down at 2 to 1, and he ran like he should have been 1 to 5.
They knew.
They knew. Well, it's funny. I was at work myself, but I was playing along, of course, and I shut myself out of the race. I was using the 3 and 6, and I think he beat the 6 and 3. He would buy both of them like they were standing still. Anyway, your bucket list track or race day event you would like to attend, either here or abroad?
I'm a beach kid. When I was a kid, I was a lifeguard at a swimming pool, but I love the beach and, looking at that opening shot at Del Mar every day where they look across the street at the beach. I've never been to Del Mar because of the overlap with Saratoga for many years. Obviously, Derby and Breeders' Cup would be on the list. But the one I think, if I'm really saying this would be fun, and I'd like to go Melbourne Cup, go to Australia, see the Melbourne Cup, the race that stops a nation. How can we disagree with that?
My top one, Matt Bernier. I've had a lot of people say the Melbourne Cup just looks like a lot of fun. Paul, did you want to say something?
Howard, put that trip together, Howard. Let's do it.
All right, live from
live
Melbourne.
Podcast, podcast from Melbourne. I'm in.
I think we need Pete's pockets for that one. We'll have to talk to Pete about that one. All right, we got a few more questions. Here's mine, Seth. You have to win one race for $1 million. You're the owner. Which jockey do you want taking them out?
Current jockey, or can it be historic?
Anyone you want in the history of the game.
I'm probably going with Jerry Bailey. I always thought, as a Saratoga, as a homer with New York racing, Jerry Bailey up at Saratoga was very good. And so I guess if I could go back, I'd land on Jerry Bailey.
That's a pretty good pick. We got 3 more left. Pete, this is yours.
Easy one. Vertical or horizontal better, or both?
I would say both, just because the two things I play most often, I'm an exacta guy. I like exactas, but I've gotten into pick 4s over the past few years, and so I like pick 4s as well. And those are kind of the two go-to bets. On a race-by-race basis, I'll play some tries, and occasionally I'll jump in, pick 5s. Or I will say a bet that I've gotten kind of a little more into. Probably in my early days, I played it much more than I do now, but I've gotten a little more into it recently. the double, I think, gets a little overlooked by people,
Yeah.
particularly the rolling doubles now. But if you have a couple of opinions in a couple of races that are together, you can wind up with some decent money. If you put $20 on it, you can walk away with $300 or $400 on a $30 or $40 double. So the doubles become kind of fun for me.
As I played more contests, as you know, we talked off the air about some contest play. I'm a big fan of doubles. I didn't used to play doubles much, but there's absolutely value in doubles if you check out the parlays. I'm sure that one horse, by the way, that Paul mentioned was I'm sure I'm sure was an underlay in the parlay. I'm sure. All right, two more questions. I believe this is this is Paul's.
Your favorite non-horse racing sporting event ever attended?
I am an SU graduate, Syracuse University. I spent a couple of years at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute studying engineering, and wound up at Syracuse and got a degree in film production. So I was all over the place. But as a Syracuse graduate, I love Syracuse basketball. And some years ago, my brother was in the Air Force. He was stationed in Hawaii. My two sisters, my dad, and I went out to visit him, and it overlapped with a tournament, one of those like Thanksgiving time tournaments that kick off the season. Syracuse was playing, and so what's wrong with a tournament? Syracuse basketball in Hawaii.
Little Jimmy Boeheim, the Maui Classic, I think, the Maui Invitational.
Yeah.
I think is probably what you saw there. Last question. We really appreciate all your answers here, Seth. The craziest or most unusual or most embarrassing, completely up to you, on-air moment. How long have you been on air, Seth, professionally?
With OTB, probably about 12 years.
Is there anything?
And then I had my own small television production company before that, where I was more behind the camera.
Okay.
What would be my? And I'm not reluctant to say it.
Or embarrassing.
I'm not reluctant to say it. I'm just trying to think of. I'm sure there have been.
This is YouTube, okay? This is not, we're not on network TV here, so we can we throw a little BS at each other. We can, it's not.
I'm trying.
I wouldn't say it's R-rated, but it's not family necessarily either. So
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean, as I say, I co-host the Sunday morning show with Steve Bick, and he constantly makes fun of my wardrobe. So that has become kind of a running. Oh. Now I remember. Okay, it was just last year.
All right.
The Sunday morning show. So it's Sunday morning. I'm in bed. I hear knocking at the door. I'm kind of it's maybe it was actually fairly early in the meet, but once Saratoga starts, I'm kind of a zombie. So knocking at the door early in the morning, I open up the door. There's a woman there who says, "Oh, you're all right." And then from out of the side comes Paul Matisse. The very good handicapper and contest player. And it was Paul and his wife. I had, unbeknownst to me, because I had just popped up to bed to answer the door, I overslept. I missed the 9 to 10 a.m. show completely.
Wow.
Vic came in to co-host with me at 10 a.m. and everybody's like, because they tried to call me, but I turned off my phone at night. So it doesn't. So they had tried to call. They couldn't get me. Vic then calls up Paul Matisse, who lives around the corner from me, and says, "Go check up." So for weeks, it became something on the air. I wound up showing up and getting in the last half hour, and that was they kind of made fun of that. But for weeks around the track, people, were kind of offering to buy me an alarm clock for my birthday. So that ranks up there. You're an insurance salesman. You're late to work. Nobody thinks anything. You're on TV. They think you're dead.
Yeah, that can be a bit of a problem. Well, fortunately, you're okay, and we're glad everything worked out for you, Seth. You weren't fired or anything, so that's good. All right, Seth, let's jump into late pick 5, sir, because I think it's outstanding. We handicapped Del Mar's pick 5 last night, which had huge field sizes. Field sizes not quite as big as Saratoga on Saturday, but the star power is absolutely out. We're going to go ahead and start with race 7. Seth, you're going to be first. Let me bring some things on the screen here as I go ahead and bring up the Equibase. We use the Equibase entries, then we'll use DRF PPs, as I think you probably know on the show, Seth. The late pick 5 on Saturday at Saratoga will start at approximately 4:17 Eastern Standard Time. It starts with a main special weight, 5.5 furlongs on the turf. This is New York breds there, and I'll show you everyone the field here. It is a field of 10 There are some also eligibles. They're all main track onlys. And Seth, as I bring our picks on the screen, and everyone's going to see something very unusual for this show. We all are on the same horse, believe it or not, here. So no pressure on the 5 horse. The weather is supposed to be, let's bring this on screen here, Seth. The weather, obviously, we got some rain today. They might be off the turf tomorrow. I'm curious to see what they do, or at least I think a lot of the races could be off the turf tomorrow. But the next 2 days look great. The turf's going to be, I would say, good for Saturday, Seth, if I had to guess. Definitely took some moisture in the track.
Yeah.
You're going with the 5 here in this race. We're all going with the 5. Mr. Chairman, 4-1 for Clement and Rosario.
I did not see that coming, because now I'm thinking that 4-1 maybe we're that's a wishful thinking. But I called the race 5, 2, 1, and 4. I thought the 9 and the 8 were a little bit interesting. It's a tough race to start the sequence, but I'm going to use the 5, 2, and the 1 on a pick 5 ticket. And 5, Mr. Chairman, buy into Mischief. Very good sire, first out runners. And I get it, this is not a debut runner, but I think those first out, those debut runner stats indicate win early. And so far this year, into Mischief, 69 first-time starters, 12 wins, 9 seconds, 12 thirds. Good numbers, obviously, for the sire. The dam is getting a little long in the tooth. Her first fall was in 2009, but she has produced Disco Partner. That horse won its debut back in 2014. Overall, won 11 of 32. Another sibling called Fly Fly Away that was 5th in debut and then won the second start. That was back in 2019. So I thought there was a little.
The horse we're talking about is this gray here on the outside, guys, that we're watching here. Go ahead, Seth.
Yeah, winds up running second in the debut. So I thought there was a little win early, top and bottom. Christophe Clement can get horses to win early. So off of this debut effort, we're seeing where the horse runs a nice second. I'm going to use this one, the experience under the belt, the win early breeding, Clement as well. I'll also use Hey Mac, it's Jack, goes out for Kerry Breon, the up-and-coming steeplechase trainer who worked for Jonathan Shepard. Folks who watch my handicapping enough know that I was a Jonathan Shepard fan for years and years. And so I think she is picking up the mantle very nicely. And off the second place finish for this one, 8 tries already and hasn't gotten it done. But it seems like the last effort may be pointing in a good direction. And Built to Last for Tom Morley, again, off the last effort, maybe is moving in the right direction. So now I'm really intrigued to see what we do get for odds on the 5, but I'm going to use the 5, 2, and the 1.
Yeah, David Aragona, as I talked about on your show, and I'm sure you've talked about many times, Seth, I think he's the best morning line maker in the country.
Yeah.
I just, with Rosario and Clement and a huge effort, there's just a lot of horses in here, Seth, that just don't do a lot for me. They've had their chances. They haven't gotten the job done. Pete, let's go to you. I'm assuming you feel, I don't think we need to talk too much about this race, guys. We all have similar horses. Was that your feeling, Pete? Just a horse that can improve and others just don't do much for you?
Yeah, pretty much. And obviously I like Seth being on the show. We have the same exact pits. So me and him are simpatico. So either we're going to go right down the tubes together or we're going to make some money together. But yeah, it was pretty much the same thing. You always like a horse with these types of connections who ran really well in their first start, took money. So I know we talked about that earlier, but was the favorite coming out of the gate. So that usually means that they're at least sort of well thought of. Plus, I like the fact that the works after that race are still good. Yeah. So it shows that it's still in form.
By the way, Stever came back a few days ago and ran big. And I was actually on Saturday. I was there, so the form fits. I think the third place finisher came back and won.
Nice buyer jump. And then I had Clement has a 31% win and 64% in the money with second career starters in maiden special weight turf sprints. So it's pretty specific, but it was just something that maybe is in his wheelhouse. So, I mean, a lot of things are in his wheelhouse, but maybe this is one. And again, you have Rosario. So I just think this one fits in everything. And like you said, this one looks like it's on the improve, whereas some of these other ones just sort of are what they are. Like the favorite, the 4, which, Paul will wind up talking to. It's one of those who's run a bunch of times and still hasn't won. Maybe those you get a little soured on.
Yeah, Paul, talk about the 4 Feathers Road. I think this is the best closer in the race. She's very consistent, but the 0 for 10 doesn't exactly exude a lot of confidence.
Yeah, I picked her second, but strictly to finish on the board. And I think there's no chance the 4 goes off lower odds than the 5.
I would agree.
I think they got away with one with the 5 last time, putting her in for 40. Out of an Into Mischief horse Seth, you talked about the mare, and she is getting on, but she throws turf sprinters. She's a 24% win rate with turf sprinters. And, Pete talked about Clement. That goes for this race. But, a Generazio homebred that you can, out of Into Mischief, you could have grabbed for 40. I think they got away with one there. And you notice they weren't going to risk it a second time. So I think the 4 is strictly an underneath horse for me. Howard, I will have her probably as a C in my sequence, just in case. But I would, even in a race like this, I think I would lean fairly heavily on the 5.
Yeah, I don't think you can almost single this horse to start your pick 5, depending on how the other money. But there's horses that we're about to talk about that are also very singleable for people that like to do that. Let's jump on to the next 2 races. And Seth, we've got a grade 1 and a grade 2. It's just 2 fantastic races with incredible history. For a long time with these races. We're going to talk about race 8 here. Race 8 is the Alfred G. Vanderbilt. It's a grade 1. I believe it's a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup. They're going 6 furlongs. It's 350,000 on the dirt. There is an absolute monster who really needs no introduction in this race, Seth. The number 4, Jackie's Warrior.
Yeah, that you were alluding, you could single. I'm not on the pick 5, but just because the way I play, I do like to maybe toss somebody else in because if you do get past this one, the thing blows up. And I could still keep the ticket fairly affordable. I mean, in some instances, I may wind up there with the single if I thought I had super clever opinions and had to go wider later. But again, my ticket kind of fell into a place where I'm going to use New York traffic as well. But it goes through Jackie's Warrior, clearly. You look at that 4-for-4 record, which includes last year, the nice win in the Jerkins. That was probably, if not the best, one of the best races last year up in Saratoga where Jackie's Warrior took on Life is Good. So 4-for-4 over the track. Another one of these super potent sprinters from Asmussen. He's just had a barn full of them over the past few years. Horse comes in good form off the 2 triple-digit wins most recently. It goes through Jackie's Warrior. But again, New York traffic, the win 2 back against State Breds was pretty good. Then went to Penn National. That was kind of an interesting move, but went there and pulled down the winner's share of $100,000. So a little confidence booster perhaps for the Saffy horse. So I'll play that one as well. I would say if folks maybe want to take a 1 punch on the exacta, I wouldn't have an argument if you put Jackie's Warrior over Knee Deep in Snow, or if you like Willie Boy, Chantal Sutherland coming up for the ride. I don't know whether I would necessarily 1 punch Jackie's Warrior and New York traffic, but if you want to play around, maybe the 1 or the 2 could be interesting underneath Jackie's Warrior. As I say, goes through Jackie's Warrior on my ticket. I'll throw in just a little other idea with New York traffic.
Seth, you feel pretty confident New York traffic will be the second choice in this race?
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah. I found it interesting that this horse has never run at Saratoga. That's one thing I found very interesting about New York traffic. The other thing about New York traffic is I always thought he was a bit like one-pace plotting type. And now Saffy's got him sprinting really well. So he's in raging form. He's not as good enough. He's not as good as Jackie's Warrior. But listen, you could do worse with picking a long shot to beat Jackie. It's got IRAD. So, I mean, there's some things to like about this horse. Paul, I want to go to you. I mean, we don't need to keep talking about Jackie's Warrior. You also have New York traffic in third. Paul, is there any scenario you can see where Jackie's Warrior loses this race?
Oh yeah, it's Saratoga. Of course, there's of course there's
Bella Sophia lost at 1-2 earlier this week, right?
Yeah, I mean it's the thing is though, find her bad race on the Breeders' Cup Sprint. That was her bad race. And it
his. Paul loves calling horses by the wrong sex.
Yeah, I know
Jackie. The Jackie thing throws everyone off.
But no, I mean I covered the Saratoga Special when he won this race as a 2-year-old, and as Seth says, in addition, you try to find a way to beat a 1-5 shot, and then you're looking at 4-for-4 at Saratoga. So sometimes you get a horse coming in with those numbers. You say, well, maybe you won't like the track, but
Yeah.
this is arguably his favorite track of all tracks. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree though, Howard. I think New York Traffic has turned into a really good one-turn horse, and if I were picking seahorses to beat Jackie's Warrior, which I may not be, they would be the 2 and 3. I also, Seth, would. It looks like this 2 is in very good form. I don't know how that Gulfstream form is going to translate, but I wouldn't. Delgado's a good trainer. I think Chantel's a pretty good jockey, and I think to send a horse up here from Gulfstream, knowing Jackie's Warrior is waiting, they must be fairly confident that at least the horse is going to be better than everyone else.
A few quick shout outs. Chris Mack mentioned, absolutely the great era of champions. Val Place, thanks for joining the show. Appreciate it. Shout out to Ross Blacker, who is a fan of the show, and I actually met for the second time. I saw him at the Belmont. I saw him last weekend, and Ross very much liked Cyberknife. So congratulations to Ross, one of our dedicated listeners and viewers who had Cyberknife. Pete, I mean, this is Jackie's Warrior, and move on.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I just don't know if there's anyone. Paul talked about the Breeders' Cup. In the Breeders' Cup, there's obviously top-notch horses, and there's horses that can at least try and did run with Jackie's Warrior that day. I just don't know if there's anyone in this race who could do that. Like if you like, I know you have I see you have the 2 on top, so you'll talk about Willie Boy, but Willie Boy isn't going to be able to run with. Willie Boy is going to need someone to soften Jackie's Warrior up, and then potentially would have to come off the pace a little bit. So, I mean, even if you just look at the time forms, if you just go straight on numbers, I just don't see anyone who has consistently the numbers to run with Jackie's Warrior. And I mean, when he gets on the lead, you're not catching him unless you're great, and none of these horses are great.
No. All right, guys, here's my goofy opinion. Everyone, feel free to make fun of it. That's absolutely fine. I mean, I don't need to talk about Jackie's Warrior. He's obviously the horse to beat, and he'll probably draw off and win by 4. Here's the thing, and I think you guys would all agree with this. Jackie's Warrior, in his first 2 races this year, actually 3 races, but his last 2 races faced like no early speed. He just found unbelievably great spots, just basically walked to the lead. I mean, even the last time, I mean, I know it says it looks like he was pushed a little bit, but 22-4 first quarter. I mean, he's been 22-3, 22-4 first quarter is his last 2. The only start that he was pushed at all was his first race back. Now, you could say he didn't run as well because it was first race back. Okay, fine. But there's legitimate early speed in this race. Knee deep in snow is fast early. I mean, I don't think he has any chance in hell to win this race, but he's fast. Did everyone notice that the Willie Boy is trained by Jorge Delgado, right? Did you guys notice who the 5 is trained by? Excuse me, the 6, who is absolutely dead speed. Now look, Doc Amster is 2-5 to finish last in this race, in my opinion. Okay, but couldn't this horse press Jackie's Warrior really hard early? I mean, is that not possible? I if there's a long shot, if there's a horse that's going to win this race, I'm going to go with 2 Willie Boy because this horse is getting better and better. He's fresh. It's 4th off the layoff. I have no idea if he can handle Saratoga. Chantel figures to sit a great trip. People are going to poo-poo Chantel because they don't think she can ride anymore. She can ride. Guys, she can ride. I've seen her down at Gulfstream. I don't know if Willie Boy has a chance in hell in this race, but if there's an upsetter, I'm going with this 2. Would not shock me. And Seth, as you said, this would completely blow up the pick 5 or pick 4 or whatever. So I'm going to use Willie Boy not equally with Jackie's Warrior. I'll probably put Willie Boy as a B as in boy, and I'll throw New York Traffic as a C. It's just the first time all year, guys, that Jackie's Warrior has probably faced some serious early speed. Seth, tell me I'm completely crazy.
I like to call on the barn mate, as it were, and certainly you look at that last race at Monmouth, with a 107 and change 6 furlongs. I'll also toss one other thought out there. This is the Alfred Vanderbilt handicap, and Jackie's Warrior is assigned 127. Yeah. And, we don't pay that much attention to weight anymore, but how often do you see a horse carrying 127? So Jackie's Warrior is giving a little bit of weight away here as well. And, I get through the first leg of my pick 5, and as I say, I'm looking at in this leg using the 4 and the 3. I may put together a little pick 4 using Willie Boy myself, because that'll blow up either of those bets.
Yeah, I mean, to not use Jackie's word would be just flat out stupid. But I don't think this is I don't think this is Secretariat here. I mean, I don't think Jackie's word is like infallible. We'll have to see if he wins easily, guys. I get the feeling he'll just keep winning easily and then go to the Breeders' Cup and face like serious animals and serious speed and maybe lose again. I have nothing against this horse. I love the horse and I love Rosario and Asmussen. I don't know. There's just, and by the way, last thing, Seth, before we move on, the track has been unusually slow this meet, and I'm not saying the supers are doing anything wrong, but I've seen like 6 furlongs on fast dirt and like 113, like crazy. I'm sure you've talked to a lot of people. What do people make of that right now, or has that been a topic of discussion?
I didn't hear too much about it really until today, and look at some of the times today, and people were picking up on, the track is deep. I don't know, but the times today were notably slow.
Yeah, now maybe the rain is going to change it. I don't know, but just something. I'm not saying it's unfair. I'm not saying it's untoward. I'm not trying to start a controversy. I just find it interesting. Paul, you cover obviously Saratoga for this special. Have you heard through the grapevine from the Clancys or anyone that topic of conversation? It's the really slow times at Saratoga on the dirt this meet so far.
Yeah, I haven't, but I one of my guys that I go up with is already up there, and he texted me I texted him after the first race today when I think they went 154 for a mile and a mile and an eighth, Seth? It was some ridiculous.
I think the 3/4 was 116, if I remember.
Yeah, I think it was a mile and an eighth. They went 154 and 2. So I texted my friend who was up there, and I said, I demand that immediately you challenge the winner of that race to a match race, because I said I think you can hold your own. So
Pete, you could run in 156, Pete. I hear you're in pretty good shape.
Yeah. I could barely get up the steps. Look, never mind running around the track.
Happen. Those are good points, Howard, about the barn mates. The only thing about Jackie's Warrior running, quote, not that fast is that's as fast as he's had to run. Last year in this race, in the Amsterdam, in the slop, he went 21 and 2 and kept going. So, and then you look at that Pat Day Mile last year. When they went 107 and 4 for 4 furlongs, and he kept going. So, hey, look, you want to hit the pick 5 without him, and it's wise to have a chance. But I look at this field and I don't see anyone jumping off the page as boy, this is a race where he's vulnerable. I think this field is very, very average.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Let's move on to the Jim Dandy, guys. This is the big prep. Of course, this is the grade 2. It's the big prep for the Travers next month, which looks to be, Seth, an unbelievable race next month, by the way. Not that this one is too bad. Maybe one of the better Jim Dandies we've seen in a long time. Post time's approximately 5:37. It's $600,000, of course, strict for 3-year-olds. They're going a mile and eighth on the dirt. We've got a small but very contentious field of 5 with Epicenter, early voting Zandon. I mean, Tawny Port's not that bad himself, and sort of a toss in for Rudy Brissett and Western River. As everyone can see on the screen there, Seth, you're going to go with early voting, who is super impressive in the Preakness. We'll show the end of that race beating Epicenter.
Yeah, I went back and forth, and I've been saying on TV for the last month and a half or so, the first half of the season left the 3-year-old crop kind of undefined, and I thought the summer is going to start to validate these horses. Perhaps Haskell, Jim Dandy, Travers, Pennsylvania Derby. Well, I don't think the Haskell helped us out much. Cyberknife from this point on, with the Arkansas Derby and the Haskell, has a chance to really move forward. But 2 horses in this race, Epicenter and early voting in this Jim Dandy, clearly have the opportunity to move forward and kind of step up as a leader of the division, perhaps. And again, I went back and forth. I really like Epicenter, but I just thought, boy, that Preakness victory, and I like the Chad and Seth Klarman. Chad said was interviewed before the Derby, and he said, the horse is lightly raced, and being lightly raced, you rush your horse into the Derby, you can get him going the wrong way. He said, I'm lucky enough to have an owner who is able to take time if we want to do that. That's what they did. They came back in the Preakness. It paid off for them. Solid buyer figure, still lightly raced with only the 4 starts. So I tilted in that direction, but just slightly over Epicenter. Those two are the two that, on a pick 5, I'll be using. Zandon, I think, is a little bit intriguing as well. Tawny Port probably has to step it up a little, but I wouldn't knock anybody who was playing around in that direction. But I have it 4, 2, 5, and 3. And again, on a pick 5, I pop in the 4 and the 2.
So, Seth, how do you see this? How do you envision this race from a race flow perspective? There's not a lot of early speed. Early voting looks like he can get the lead if he wants it. But Epicenter, at least in my opinion, is best on the lead or very close to the lead. The problem with Rosario and Epicenter is that he's inside of early voting. So what do you think the strategy is going to be from the Asmussen camp here, Seth?
Yeah, it does seem like early voting is the one who, as you say, just with the post position, is probably going to wind up controlling, maybe sitting outside Epicenter and controlling around the turn and into the back stretch, and then maybe try to take a little bit of a lead. As you say, you go back on Epicenter's PPs, he's had plenty of races where he liked the lead, but I just think what he's done in the past couple of starts indicates that, I think that I agree with what you were kind of alluding to. I think early voting is probably going to be the one to chase, and Epicenter will play like he did in the past couple of starts. And again, in a short field with the strategic kind of a situation here, again, the edge goes a little bit to early voting. But yeah, it looks like basically a race without a whole lot of pace, but it's probably between those two early who takes the lead. And I would vote for early voting, no pun intended.
Okay. By the way, any questions for Seth, please feel free to put them in the chat. My feeling here in this race, and Paul, we'll go to you next. My feeling is Joel's going to break somewhat aggressively. I think early voting can take the lead, and I think then Joel will have time to sort of come around on the outside and just sit outside of early voting, and then it's going to be a horse race. And I have a hard time believing, guys, that with a month out from the biggest race, for the summer, the Travers, they're going to like hook up or anything. That would absolutely shock me. I just, and I will talk about that next because all these guys want to win. I mean, you can say it's a prep, but it's 600,000. Like you mentioned, Seth, I mean, there's 3-year-old voting on the line eventually, and people are going to point to this race maybe and say, well, he beat him and he beat, so for people to suggest these horses are not cranked at all or like they don't care, it's just for the Travers, I respectfully disagree. Paul, how cranked these horses are? I mean, they're all competitive. They want to win this race, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, you got Epicenter coming off a layoff. You have Zandon coming off a layoff. You have early voting coming off a layoff. They're going to be keen to go. Watch the way they've been working. I don't. This, as you said, it's a $600,000 race at Saratoga, and the Travers is going to be absolutely loaded. So don't put all your eggs in that basket. So I would say, I would say you're going to see their best. Asmussen really has a chip on his shoulder with this horse. He feels the horse should have won the Derby, and he's right. And then he feels the horse got a bad ride in the Preakness, and he's right. And, I think this horse is going to be sitting on go, and there's no way, he was 7th out of 9 last time. I think Epicenter at worst is going to be second early, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's right on the lead. I don't think they're going to make. I loved early voting in the Preakness. I think he rode the best race, had the best horse, but I think Asmussen really is chomping at the bit for this horse to win one of these high-profile races, and I think this horse will be sitting on go and will be on or near the lead.
I would be fascinated if Epicenter goes hard. I'd be fascinated to see what early voting does. Like I said, I don't think they're going to hook up. I mean, early voting would just sit then. I cannot imagine these two hooking up. That being said, Paul, you've got Zandon on top, who I loved in the Derby. I loved this horse in general. I have to say, in my opinion, I thought it was a little disappointing in the Derby. I thought he was going by. He never did. I'm slightly concerned about the 1.25 miles next month with distance, but this 1.1 miles, to me, just suits this horse perfectly.
Yeah, I'm with you. They showed the Derby, of course, on the Fox show today, so I had to live through that again. I had, like yourself, Howard, I had a pretty good futures bet on Zandon that it looked like he was rolling right on by. And the way it turned out, I'm glad he didn't go by, because if he had gone by and then got picked up by Rich Strike, then I would have, really been on the health watch. But I don't know. I kind of still have this sneaky feeling there's a outside chance this guy could be the best of a good crop. So if he is, he's got to win this race, and I think he's got every chance to win this race.
Yeah, he's going to sit a great trip. I mean, he's got no real excuses other than he's maybe not ready. Pete, any final comments that you want to mention about this race before we move on?
Well, real quick, I would just say I like the one thing I like when you see these three hook up is I do think early voting will be on the lead. I think that's where he does his best work. I think in the Preakness, he just knew, I think Jose knew that he was behind really cheap speed, so he was able to sit off of it. But I think in this one, they're going to run and do what they do best, which is fun. You have early voting, who's really good on the lead, Epicenter, who I think is really good just sitting off, and Zandon, the closer. So it's nice having them at all three levels and to see them all hook up. But I think the one thing with Zandon, to Paul's benefit maybe, would be in a 5-horse field, he's not going to be so far back. So it's just going to be when he makes the move. But I do think for Epicenter this time, he's going to have to be on early voting's neck, like at the top of the lane. You can't fool around and let him kick away a little bit, because he's really tough to catch. So I think Joel's going to have to be aggressive, get to him early, and then see if he can go by. But I don't think he can wait on it too long and then try and pass him late, because I'm not sure early voting is really going to give it up, even though he did against Mo Donegal. But I think he's coming into his own, so you can't let him get away cheaply in the lane.
Yeah, it's going to be
I'm going to be very interested to see where the betting public winds up. David Aragona has him a fraction of a tick away. I'm really intrigued to see which way the betting public winds up going.
Seth, even though, I mean, a lot of people can say, well, I never want to bet, make a win bet at X odds. It's all about value, right? So you have early voting on top. Let's just hypothetically, last question. What is the lowest odds that you would go on a win bet personally on Epicenter? Would you bet him at 7-5?
Probably 8-5 or 8-5 is about my low end on win bets. Otherwise, I start looking for other options.
Okay, fair enough. It's gonna be interesting. You know what? I think early voting is actually gonna be favored. Just a gut feeling. Maybe it's the the Klarovich situation. I don't know, but it's gonna be a great race, guys. And anyway, you look at it. Waiting in the wings is Charge It, and Paul, the mighty Rich Strike, is waiting for them in the Travers.
He's
Paul's
working. Hey, he's knocking. Howard, did you hear? He's knocking down the barn. I think everyone. I'll tell you what. If you're smart, you will bet this horse in the Travers.
Paul's doing that on purpose, Seth, because he wants a bigger price than everyone else. So not a huge Rich Strike bet. All right, let's go on to race 10, which I think is actually the most wide open race of the entire sequence. Personally, this is a very tough race here. Race 10, it's an allowance. It's mile to 16th on the turf. This is for 3-year-olds and up. It's an N2X, 115. Wow, Seth, $115,000 is the purse. My goodness, you got a huge field here, as you can see on the screen. Goes down. There are some AEs, but again, they're MTOs, and I highly doubt this race will be taken off the turf. Seth, you're going with a horse that was absolutely awesome in his first start, cost $2 million, and somehow went off the board at 5-1 in that race. The number 12 that I go to, is it pronounced Cap? Hold on a second. I get to it. Hold on one second. There we go. Yeah, Capensis for Todd Pletcher and Jose Ortiz. We'll watch the stretch run. This horse was absolutely awesome.
Yeah, I really debated, because I kind of agree with you that this is a wide open race. But the way I handicap them the way I think they're going to come under the wire, and then let the folks decide how they want to bet, because there's so many different ways to bet now. You can go win on the win side, or you can use horses in the horizontal. And so Capensis, the 12, as I say, I went back and forth with only the one race. He's going to have to validate it. But boy, this horse looked good in the debut. And so I went there. But again, I think you can make cases in other directions. Ricochet, 12-1 on the morning line for Mike Maker. Comes out of a starter allowance win, and I think that was a nice performance that bodes well for Saturday afternoon. And again, you get a price at 8-1 Bay Street money going out for Rob Actress off a couple of good second place finishes. I think that horse belongs in the conversation. And I couldn't ignore, I think the numbers, and I'm a buyer's guy, but they're a tool in the toolbox. To me, the numbers are a little bit light on orchestration, but you can't ignore Chad and Klarovich. And I won't be shocked because of the numbers and because I think today's bettors focus so much on the buyers. I wouldn't be shocked to see this one float up a little bit. That said, I think orchestration belongs in the conversation. Chad and Klarovich, and a horse that is lightly raced and now has had a break. And I always say lightly raced 2-year-olds or even lightly raced 3-year-olds, when they take time off and come back that next season, it's not surprising to see them come back improved. And so orchestration, I think, has to be in the conversation for me as well. So I'm 2, 8, 1, and 3, and on the pick 5 ticket, I'll plug all of those in.
Yeah, I almost put orchestration on top. One quick thing about Compensis. Pletcher's numbers first time out going long on the turf are not very good. So not only did Compensis just blow away the field, he sort of blew away the stat because Pletcher doesn't usually do that too often. Pete, I'm going to let you talk about orchestration. I'm going to show the last replay. I almost put this horse on top. I think this horse is absolutely fascinating. Yeah. This is the kind of like contest horse that I love to play because I think you're going to get a decent price because Compensis is going to be, I think, sub 2-1, like probably 7-5 or some ridiculous number. What is he liked about the 3, Pete? And I'll show the last replay when he had a lot of trouble. Orchestration is going to be the 3 horse in this replay. Go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, and I think Seth hit on what I like. The one thing when he talked about the numbers are a little low, but in that last race, and you'll see it here, it was a really bad trip, really tough. Probably if he gets away and he can go by, then he maybe runs a better number there. Now you're talking about a horse coming from into their 4-year-old season, on the improve with numbers that are closer to the 12. Whereas I don't know if you want to point it out.
Right. The worst time just gets pinched really bad. And then he's
you can see the Klarovich colors there. Yep. And now swings about 5 wide there to try and has run late. So he didn't give it up. So he had run late, but
watch
he was
the gallop out, by the way, Pete and everyone. The gallop out.
Yeah, I did.
It's a little hard to see. It's right here. I'm going to let it keep running through the trees. Go ahead, Pete, but just keep watching the very outside. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. And so I just think that one, again, we always talk about muddying up the form a bit. And I think that one does. If you don't watch the replay, maybe you just look at it and you think of it as maybe not so great. But I think that one could have been a lot better. And then, like Seth said, I like a horse that's coming back. So those numbers don't match up maybe, but those were last year's numbers. If this one is on the improve and those numbers jump up, now he's right there with the 12, who's now coming out of the 12 hole, only second start. Actually had a weird stat on the 12. Pletcher, you talked about him first time out going long, not being so good. I have a pretty granular one where he's 3 for 28, Pletcher, on the win end, with maidens who won their last race coming back in an allowance turf route over the past couple years. So for whatever reason, and again, sometimes some of these, it's hard to figure out why they are what they are, but just coming back. But maybe this one bucks all the trends. I mean, he's a $2 million horse. He just could be special. So you could throw all those out the window potentially if you get a good enough horse.
Yeah. I mean, 3 for 28 is not, and that 28 is not a small sample.
Yeah, it's not small. And I do think the 12 could hamper. I mean, it's a horse on their second start coming out, it was in a 7-horse field out of the 4 hole, which is kind of fine. And it just went to the back and was able to run by probably horses it's just better than, because I thought it was a pretty weak field. So now you're coming out of the 12. Who knows what's going to happen from there? So I don't think it's a lock. I do think, though, he's probably the best horse in the race on paper by far.
Paul, your general thoughts? You got the 8. The 8 is up and coming. I don't like him on top, but I think Ricochet, and Seth mentioned him. I mean, all 3 of you have this horse in the money. I have this horse actually as a B or a C. He's interesting and getting better for Maker. I mean, you could do worse 12-1 shots in this horse.
Well, all is right with the world again because Pete and I have the same numbers.
We're back, Paul. We're back. We're back.
After I went off the reservation last night.
Obviously, the West Coast isn't our thing. We're back with more East Coast people.
No, this was. I like him as a board horse, but I'm glad Seth Seth mentioned it too. It gives me a little more confidence. I think, and I like Trombetta a lot, but you can't go wrong going to Mike Maker. This is crazy things happen in the last race of the day. Oh, this isn't the last race of the day.
No.
It usually is. I think the horse has a puncher's chance. He'll be a B or C. I thought the Capensis race, I watched it. If you watch it, and we don't need to see it, but you showed the stretch, Howard. But if you watch everything up to the stretch, there is not 1 second in that race that Jose Ortiz asked that horse to run at all until on the far turn. I mean, never did his hands did not move before the far turn, and that was impressive. And the 3 was a horrendous trip. So that. And I've had this. I had him on my horse watch. He ran great at Saratoga last year on. I think that was Travers Eve or Travers Day, if I'm not mistaken. So those are the 2 for me, with a little bit of Ricochet.
All right, guys. Here's my clever or stupid opinion. We'll see what happens when the race ends. To me, the 12 is like exactly the type of horse you're supposed to beat and try to beat. I mean, I have nothing negative to say. The horse was amazing. This is like a grade 1 compared to the field that he faced last time. This is a much tougher field. He's got the 12 hole, which is not ideal. The ground is not going to be super firm like it was at Belmont. There's just like 3 or 4 things that I could think of as to why I should not put this horse on top. So therefore, I'm not. Obviously, he can win. Coloseo, Dean G, are you paying attention? I like Coloseo, Dean G. This horse, and I'll be very brief. This horse almost beat St. Mark's Basilica, as Dean G said. He's got some races on the go back that are very, very good. Last year is a 3-year-old. He finished second in the French 2000 Guineas, like I said, the St. Mark's Basilica. I'm not gonna show a race I was going to, but I want to move on. The race, I don't know if you guys can see it, but August 21st last year, the Prix Daphne, it was a grade 3. Beat Adhamo. Adhamo was in that race and smoked Adhamo. Now I know that was last year. Adhamo, of course, won at Monmouth, won the United Nations. So, he's been inconsistent. Obviously, if you look at his time for ratings, but he's gone left-handed the last 2 starts, which I like. Wayne Catalano is no fool. He does not bring a lot of horses to Saratoga. I have a feeling this horse is very live. He's faced by far, guys. By far the toughest horses. I have no idea if he can take the Saratoga tight turns. He's really a mystery horse. But to me, other than the 12, I just don't see a lot in here that I'm that interested in. And I see no reason why Coloseo can't win this race if he runs his best. So I'm going to go with Coloseo. I'm fascinated to see what odds he's going to be. That is my pick here in this race. And it is a guess, I will say. But I think this horse is really, really interesting, and he's used to running on softer turf, and it's not going to be soft on Saturday, but there's definitely some give in the ground after the rain today. All right, Seth, let's go on to the last race. Again, we really appreciate your time, Seth. You've been awesome. Hope you enjoyed being on the show. And Seth, don't be a stranger, man. We want to have you back sometime to talk about Saratoga or whatever. Let's go into the last race here. It's race 11 as I switch it over. Let me switch over the banners. Let's do that. There we go. It's claiming 25,000, 1 mile on the turf for 3-year-olds and up. These are sort of your your hard knocking older horses that makes the game what it is on a daily basis. The morning line favorite is number 3, Big Agenda, for Jeffrey Engelhardt and Jose Ortiz. And that's who you're going with, Seth. And that's my top choice also.
Yeah, I have a 3-7-5, and first of all, I'll say thanks for inviting me, and I'm happy to be on, and the time is no problem. And I tweeted out before I came in, you kept me out of Ciro's tonight, so that's always I didn't
I heard on Twitter.
I didn't need to be there, so I'm happy to be home, and I'll get an early night tonight, which I can always use to get in for TV in the morning. But again, 3, 7, 5, and 9. I will say the 11 is the first horse on the AE list, and if one of mine scratches and the 11 gets in, I'm going to pull that horse into my pick 5 ticket. But I put Big Agenda on top, Jeremiah Engelhardt off the claim, They stick at the same level. The horse has been competitive at this level over the past few starts. And I just thought when you looked at the rest of this field and the complexion of the rest of this field, it's competitive. But I'm going to give this guy a slight edge off what we've seen lately. Similar scenario with the Rob Falcone runner, Jack the Cat, claimed out of a nice try against this type last time. We had a winning effort against this type 2 starts back. I'm always, when horses do well at a level and come back at the same level in their next start, I always say, why not right back? And I think both of these kind of play into that. Barley won. I debated putting on top at the 8-1. And I'll share an angle that I have liked for many years now and can pay off nicely. You know, at prices, you're not going to get it to work every time, but at prices, you don't have to get it to work every time.
Yeah.
State-bred allowance runners moving out of state-bred allowance into an open claim. It can be very productive. And as I say, I debated putting this horse on top on that angle, but I like the angle a lot better when it's a longer string of state-bred allowance races, when they're kind of in that level and move out. This one has been bouncing around in other open claiming company before the last couple of starts. But again, I like that angle quite a bit. We're getting 8-1. So Barley won in my mix, and Healing also coming in from out of town. And I think class-wise is going to class up nicely with these for Mike Maker. So again, 3, 7, 5, and 9. And that 11, Artemis Bridge. Don't let an AE escape your gaze if that one does scratch into the race.
Well, there's actually a lot of very live AEs. I thought, again, a Ball of Rocks is non-possible if he gets in. I mean, there's a lot of AE. I thought that the best AE is Monarch's Glen, probably, although he's 8, but he's got a ton of back class. So everyone needs to check for scratches and changes. I will say about the 5, I don't want to poo-poo you, Seth, here to end your appearance at the show, but Barley won. I actually bet last time in a contest and came through for me. He got an unbelievable ride by IRAD last time. I don't know if he can get that kind of trip again, but the ride that IRAD, you want to watch a ride, watch the ride that IRAD actually fist pumped after that last race in an allowance race. He must have, I think he did it for Camejo. There's kind of connection there. I don't know, but anyway, it was a bizarre celebratory fist bump after winning an N1X New York bred race. But Barley won got an unbelievable trip last time. Let's see. Let's go to you, Pete. I don't have Jack the Cat in the top 3, but I can't really say any negative reasons other than I just thought maybe he wasn't as good as some others. What is it you liked about this horse, Pete?
Yeah, I thought this one was sort of wide open. I do like the jockey change to Rosario. Rosario picks this one up. I like that Falcone, I had him at 22% first after the claim on turf. So, at least he can take a horse. And the one thing I did like is that if you look at this horse's races, if you look at his races at this company or at this level, that's when he seems to run best. So he had one clunker in there back in December, but the last one was at this level, 2 back, and then you go back down a little bit. There's wins with an 83 and an 80, or second place and an 86. So I just feel like this is the level that maybe suits this one best. So when you get a horse that's actually doing something that they like to do against horses that they're sort of fit with. Now it was 0 for 3 at the distance, 0 for 2 at Saratoga. So there's negatives, but there's pretty much negatives about all of them. And I do think this one's the buyers are sort of coming back up. It's hit some decent numbers in the past, and they're working their way back up. So hopefully after the claim, maybe we see another step forward there. But again, it's not with I think the ticket I sent you maybe went about 5 deep or so. It's not with like a whole ton of confidence with him on top. Okay,
and Falcone is good off the claim. Paul, why don't you quickly talk about Healing? You've got this horse second. So does Pete. I have him in third. This is a Maker, Gaff Leone, who Tyler seems to be coming around a little bit. He was struggling, but I think he won again today. And he did. He's an excellent jockey, obviously.
Yeah, and this will be kind of a defensive play for me. I mean, I don't know that I want him at 5-2 in this race if that line is close, but obviously he has a bunch of class. Series of open allowance races. I know this is an open race to Seth's point about the state bred allowances, but he has back numbers that would definitely win this race. But in 8 out of 19 career, he was more of a defensive pick for me. I also have the 7. Pete and I are back on the same page again this race.
Hey, there you go.
Christine knows. So Our breakup. We had a little. We went to counseling this morning.
We're back.
And,
We're
back together today. I was, as I say, I was a little off the rails last night, but I only need one of those Euros to win it, Delmar, and I'll be just fine, Howard.
There you go.
But I thought Jack the Cat was pretty good here. I agree. Samwell to Joel, the Falcone stats. If you narrow it all the way down to what you gave Pete, and just at Saratoga, it's a very small sample, but he's 1 for 2. So I think the horse fits there. But I also, in the caveman ticket that Uncle Howard makes us send in, I am 5 deep as well.
Yeah. I just want to very quickly mention the one, and then I'll have Seth talk about his pick 5. The last zip I've got, I think this horse might be sent. I like Joe Sharp. I like Trevor McCarthy. There's not a lot of early speed in this race. It seems like this horse's best races are on the lead. There's nothing wrong with having a rail horse on the lead. And I think Trevor McCarthy is going to be very aggressive. I like the second off the layoff. There's a lot of things I like about the one. I think the last zip might get a bit overlooked in this spot. So I'm using him pretty hard.
Yeah,
as
Howard. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off there. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, because the one, if you look a little bit, it seems to run its best races in New York as well. If you sort of cherry pick the New York tracks, it's the better races. And then when it goes elsewhere, it sort of craps the bed. And when it, again, this is another one that's sort of getting to the company where I think it's most comfortable. And I do like what you said, the rail. I think this one's going to break and probably go to the lead because there isn't a ton of speed in here. So that's the one thing is there's not much speed. So I think this one could maybe de facto hopefully get the lead just from being on the rail potentially.
Well, I see a scenario exactly a year from now, almost July 31st last year, 25 claimer, one at 7-1, going to the lead, one of his best races. So I think he's interesting, guys, possibly to wire the field. Seth, we're going to very quickly talk about your pick 5, and I'm going to let you go for the night. Maybe you can get back to cereals. It's not too late if you want to do that. But
once I go by, I'm by.
There you go. Your pick 5 is on the bottom of the screen. Let me read it off, Seth, because, again, we have a lot of people that are going to be listening to the show on their audio formats later this week and obviously cannot see your pick 5 on the bottom of the screen. Seth Merrow's pick 5. He's going 1-3-5.
I have to jump in. I'm actually 1-2-5.
Excuse me, 1-2-5. Okay, was that my mistake? Maybe I wrote it down.
I don't know. I don't know.
If I wrote it, let me fix that real quick here. Seth is going the magic of live podcasting, and how about that? There we go.
Perfect.
1-2. I'm the graphics department. I'm the editor. I'm the producer. I'm the director. 1-2-5 with 3-4 with 2-4 with 1-3-8 12 with 3-5 7-9. I asked for a $100 less ticket. That's 96. Now, Seth, I don't know if you're an ABC ticket maker player or what. If you're just a straight caveman kind of guy, you're going to be using. Obviously, there's big favorites there, Jackie Warrior, but you're using was it New York Traffic equally with Jackie's Warrior?
Yeah, I am a caveman guy, and normally I have smaller tickets, and I may on a smaller ticket. I might have singled Jackie's Warrior, but with the budget you gave me, I could go too deep. And as we discussed earlier, you beat a monster and the ticket goes berserk. And so I just felt like I was comfortable where I was in the other legs. And that allowed me to maybe put in an alternative to upset the apple cart a little bit. So just with the budget, this ticket kind of made sense.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if New York Traffic. Now, you said you would just maybe cold punch the Jackie's New York. Are you going to reverse it at all?
No, I wouldn't cold punch.
I'm sorry, you would not. I apologize.
Because I like, if I was going to cold punch an exacta, I either would have went with knee deep in snow. But after hearing the conversation, I said either knee deep in snow or Willie Boy. After hearing us have the conversation, I probably wouldn't land on Willie Boy over or under Jackie's Warrior if I was gonna opt for a one punch exacta.
Got it. Sorry about that. Seth,
okay.
as we let you go, as we let you go, and then the three of us will discuss our pick fives. Once again, it's been a real pleasure having you on. Thank you for finding the show. Thank you for inviting me on your show. You'll be on this show again. I can promise. Hopefully, at some point, I'll be on your show again. It would be my honor and pleasure. For one more time, how can people check you out on air?
Again, you can swing by equidaily.com, and my picks are there throughout the meet. I do a bankroll play, a few bankroll plays every day, so you can follow us there during the Saratoga meet on Capital OTB TV. If you're in upstate New York, it's Spectrum Channel 1250. We're on the Roberts channel, the RTN, as a sub-channel, Capital OTB. You can pull that up and watch the morning shows and the afternoon shows. The morning shows typically are streamed on the Capital OTB Twitter channel, on Facebook, but it's probably easiest if you go to the Capital OTB YouTube channel and follow the live programming there. Again, we are live every racing day from Saratoga, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. We have a handicapping show, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Interviews tomorrow. Hopefully, Mike Rapoli. I was supposed to have him on today. He had something come up. So tomorrow, hopefully between 10 and 11, Mike Rapoli will jump in. So that should be an interesting kickoff to the weekend.
Well, we really appreciate it. And thanks again for being on the show. We look forward to having you, Glenn. Good luck the rest of the meet there up at Saratoga, Seth. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it. It was fun. Good luck to all of you guys as well. And Howard, I'm glad you stopped by. It was nice. Got some good feedback about that. So we'll definitely plug in. And when you guys, the other team is up in Saratoga, give me a little heads up, and we'll pull you guys over as well.
Awesome. I will say hello to you next week, Seth.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Seth, feel free to mention the HHH Racing podcast on your show as many times as you want. We can use any free publicity possible. Thanks again, Seth. Have a great night. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care, man.
All righty. What a great guy, guys. Did a fantastic job. Seth, you're more than welcome to listen to our Pick Fives if you like, or you can just go home and do whatever, or you're already home. Do whatever you need to do as Seth is hanging out there in the background. So he's a busy guy. I'm sure he's got stuff for his show that he's got to work out tomorrow. Maybe some great picks he's going to have. Let's get on to your Pick Five. Paul, we're going to go to you next. Your Pick Five, and I'm going to read it out here, is 1, 2, 5, 8, 9 with 4, with 2, 5, with 3, 8, 10, 12, with 1, 3, 5. Paul, do you want me to go to Pete, Paul?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Let me read that out one more time. 1, 2, 5, 8, 9 with 4, with 2, 5, with 3, 8, 10, 12, with 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. The famous $100 on the nose ticket from Paul, of course.
This is my new thing, Pete.
I love it. I love it every time.
Jackie's Warrior, not using early voting. Very interesting.
Well, again, I think in races like that, you may want to make a stand. I did. You could see how deep I went in the first 2 legs, so I decided to go single and 2 out of the 3 in that leg. I like Zandon, and I like Epicenter, the second best. Obviously, in an ABC format, I'm going to be using early voting, but I didn't want to go over my $100 allotment, so I just kept it to 2 horses in that race. And again, you got to, if Jackie's Warrior, if those 2 legs go to form, you really need at least 2 prices in the other 3 legs, or you're collecting peanuts and pretzels. So I just decided to go very wide at the first and last legs in this format.
By the way, peanuts and pretzels, I had both at the 1863 Club, which, by the way, is very cool. I didn't have a chance to go upstairs. I think that's for exclusive parties and whatnot. But the downstairs area of the 1863 is very cool for any of you that have a chance to go in there, especially when it's 95 and humid, especially that way. Pete, your Pick Five. You're going 1, 2, 4, 5 with 4, with 2, with 3, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. With 1, 7, 9, an extremely affordable $36 ticket that I'm going to go on a limb and say that, Pete, I'm going to suggest you're going to tell people to maybe hit that more than once.
Yeah, and actually, I sent you an updated ticket, but it's okay. No, because I sent it a little later in the day, so I was going to see if you got it or not. But the one thing I did, yeah, you can. So in the first leg, I had 1, 2, 5. I chickened out a bit. So in the second leg, I stuck with the single, the Jackie's Warrior.
Okay.
Third leg, 2, 4.
Okay.
So I chickened out on the single of Epicenter. And then 3, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. I don't know if that's the same. I think that's the same. And then 1, 3, 4, 7, 9 in the last leg.
So this is a change. I'll read it off one more time.
Yeah, sorry about
How
that.
much does that cost?
90.
Okay. I'm fixing that right now. Thanks for being patient, everyone. All right, there we go. 125 with 4, with 2-4, with 3, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, with 1, 3, 4, 7, 9, $90. Go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, and so the original one that you put up there, I was going to single Epicenter. Now it's not because I thought Epicenter like sort of lays over the field or anything. I think it's just tough in a race like that. Short field, you're going to have 3 pretty low horses. You almost have to take a stand. But I do think that just the race flow, it's hard to leave early voting off if he gets the lead like I expect him to do. And then what I decided was I'll still stay pretty short in the second and third leg, go really wide in that fourth leg because I just think it's pretty wide open, unless the 12 is just great. But I think there's enough where you can say having the 12 hole hampers him enough to where I think maybe we can get a price. And like Paul was talking about, we're going to need some prices because whether Zandon, Epicenter, or early voting wins with Jackie's Warrior and potentially that horse in the first leg, who we think could be pretty short, I think we could be in for a chalky day, at least at the start. So, and then that last leg, it's wide open to me. I don't really have a huge opinion. So just went 5 deep.
I like your strategy a lot. I like Paul's ticket too. It's just people have to decide basically what to do with the middle two, the second and third leg is really what people have to do. My ticket, and again, we've mentioned this almost every show, but for those of you that are new, all 3 of us play ABC tickets. These are not necessarily the tickets we would play. I've got a $90 ticket. I've got 1, 2, 4, 5, 9 with 2, 4, with 2, 4, with 3, 10, 12, with 1, 3, 9. It's a $90 ticket. I would in no way, shape, or fashion use Willie Boy equally with Jackie's Warrior in the second leg. I just want to make that very clear. But from a caveman standpoint, I would not use Zandon. I just don't think the race sets up for Zandon. Coincidentally enough.
Wait, what a dig at Paul right there. What a nice dig right there, Paul.
What do you want me to lie to the people, Paul? What do you want me to say? But hold on, Paul. But hold on. I think Zandon actually has a better chance in the Travers. How about that? Because you'll have Charge It in there. You're just gonna have better speed, a better pace situation.
Let me show you my background to my phone.
That's Zandon. Okay.
That's him.
Right.
That's him. You're bad mouthing right there.
Listen.
Okay.
Zandon can win. I just think it's going to be Epicenter, Jackie's Warrior around the track. We'll see who's right about.
It's not going to be Epicenter and Jackie's Warrior around the track.
I'm sorry.
One of them runs really fast or really slow.
That's how good Jackie's Warrior is. He can win the Vanderbilt, and then they're going to wheel him right back in 25 minutes.
He might be that maybe could happen. By the way,
Paul would like that better because then Zandon would really have a shot if we had that's the kind of speed we need in that leg.
All right, Pete. Now I'm a little more interested in this race, Pete. Uncle Howard is bad mouthing my boy Zandon. Okay. All right.
I love Zandon. Just I don't like him to win Saturday. Give me a freaking break. Epicenter and early voting I'm going to use. And then I will admit that the 10th race, the penultimate leg, I'm going only 3, 10, 12. I mean, others can win, and others can win the last race too. So I'm going to be very honest. In terms of a caveman ticket, I actually like Pete and Paul's tickets better. And I know you're saying, Howard, why throw your ticket out? Well, I just want to reiterate that I think I have some creative opinions within the sequence, but I just wouldn't bet it the way that you see it below. And I'm sure that particular caveman now is going to come in for like 2,500 or something crazy. But anyway,
Christine,
what? Come on, don't kiss up to Paul, Christine. Come on now.
I've always thought Christine was
you don't have to
astute.
Chris
Mack, good.
All right,
good.
Listen, I hope a lot of people bet Zandon because that'll give me a better price on Epicenter or early voting. Anyway, that's my Pick 5 ticket, guys. As we go ahead and bring back the scrolling banner, Pete, any final thoughts about Saratoga on Saturday?
No, it's just great to see the 3-year-olds coming back. We saw it in the Haskell last week. We see 3 of the best coming back this week. I think it makes for an exciting time as we head toward the Travers and the Pennsylvania Derby and whatever other derbies, and then the Breeders' Cup. I love seeing the summer of the 3-year-olds, see if who's going to jump up, who's going to sort of hold their form, who's going to jump up maybe and take the reins of the division. I think that's all really exciting.
Paul, final thoughts on Saratoga Saturday?
Well, people don't like small fields, and I get it, but in that Jim Dandy field, there's really only one horse out of the four without a chance, out of the five rather, without a chance. Western River really doesn't look like he has a chance. I mean, Tawny Point's a long shot, but it's running well, and Brad Cox is on fire, so
Yep.
you could do worse than Tawny Port. I would be very surprised, but not shocked if he won. So so there's 3 out of 5 who have an excellent chance, and the fourth one is a pretty good horse. So it is what it is. You're not going to get 12 horse fields. If you want the 12 horse field, stick around till Del Mar Saturday night, and you'll get them. And
Oh yeah.
you better have your thinking cap on, as we talked about last night. But I think this is a great race to have. It really sets up for the Travers. The Travers has been one of my favorite races for a long, long time. I used to run Howard a 1-day bus trip from here in Boston on Travers Day, which is totally insane looking back on it. But I did it 2 or 3 times where got a coach bus, put 40 people on it, went up to Saratoga for Travers, and turned around and came home. So, I mean, I've been to many Travers. I love it. I'll be there this year again. And this race will really help clarify the picture a little bit. I think, especially when it comes to Zandon. In all seriousness, because we know what we're getting with Epicenter, and early voting right now is in razor sharp form. But Zandon does have a little bit to prove. I think he's going to, but I think this race is going to tell the story. Tom Espinoza, very good, Tom. I agree
Tom
with
mentioned
Tom.
that a few times. That
Yeah, I
Western
saw a
River
couple
might
of
not be
those.
Going.
Yeah.
So we'll have to
he's
see.
He's entered tomorrow, I think, in the curling.
Oh, okay. So he probably will go there then instead. That'll be interesting to see. But the curling's a nice race too, by the way. But anyway, Pete and Paul, we appreciate your time. It's gonna be a great card on Saturday, and the Del Mar card Saturday night is absolutely loaded with big fields. So save some of that money that you either win or lose at Saratoga for Del Mar
Roll it
on
over.
Saturday. Once again, next week, and you guys don't know this, but I'm gonna try. No promises to anyone, but I'm going to reach out to Tom Durkin. I'd love to get Tom Durkin on next week during Whitney week. No guarantees, by the way, for anyone, but I'm going to reach out to Tom, Mr. Durkin. Calling him Tom is ridiculous. To Mr. Durkin and see if we can get him on the show. And I do not know when our next live show will be, ladies and gentlemen, which is really why you need to go down below and not only subscribe, but hit that notification bell so that you know when our shows will be coming up, as well as the thumbs up button. And also, last thing, the podcast pool is coming back in August next week. If you're on my email list, you'll get information about the podcast pool, which will have some changes starting in August. And if you want to learn more about the podcast pool, where we pool our money together with some exciting vertical and horizontal bets, please email me, hkravitzhorse@gmail.com, and I'll put you on the email list. For Pete Visco and Paul Halloran, this has been Howard Kravitz, episode 162 of the HHH Racing Podcast. Thanks for joining us tonight. Good luck on Saturday in the Vanderbilt and the Jim Dandy Stakes. Take care, everyone. Have a great night. Bye-bye.